It's about to happen. It's gonna happen. Christians are gonna take over the world. Just look around. Conservative Christians, evangelical Christians, Christians that still hold to the fundamentals of the faith, we're gonna take over the world, and the world is scared. Yeah, maybe not. Doesn't really seem like that, but we're gonna talk about that today. Welcome to Truth Transforms. My name's Adam Markley. We're going to take a look at a Christian Post article today entitled "The Made-Up Hysteria Over Christian Nationalism Should Stop." Yeah, the made-up hysteria. And here we're talking about, because I always have to distinguish, there's Christian nationalism in the sense of the way the left defines it, and then there's Christian nationalism, which is the theocratic rule, the theonomic postmillennial takeover dominionism. And these are two very different types of Christian nationalism, because one Christian nationalism has to do with eschatology, what one believes about the end times, and another Christian nationalism has to do with this. Are you a Christian? And are you breathing? Well, then you're a Christian nationalist. That's right. And that's how a lot of the Christians in the in-house debate are handling things too. You know, if you believe this, you must be a Christian nationalist. If you believe Christians should vote, then you must be a Christian nationalist. If you believe Christians should be involved in politics at all, like voting and saying things that are biblical, that happen to be political issues these days, because everything that's a moral issue is a political issue these days, well, then you must be a Christian nationalist. And therein lies the problem of the whole Christian nationalism discussion. Well, here's what we're going to talk about: the made-up hysteria over Christian nationalism. But before we do that, let me draw your attention to some episodes I recently did. You might want to check these out. Here's one that's basically that you can actually have an adult conversation about Christian nationalism. And in this episode, you will see James Coates and Jacob Rayom both discuss Christian nationalism. One of them, I believe that he might take the label Christian nationalist, but he's definitely a theonomic postmillennial, which is like the same thing. And then there's James Coates, who graduated from the Master's Seminary and believes very much like John MacArthur. And then there's a second episode that actually has been released as well. And this is the same discussion, part 2 of that discussion, where they really dig into the Christian nationalism, theonomy stuff. And then you'll want to watch probably even the third episode, which has just been released this morning, which is, it's about cage stage postmillennialism. Cage stage postmillennialism, maybe that's the problem. So take a look at those. I will link those below. Let's take a look at this article. It's a pretty short article. I'll read either all of it or some of it. You see I've got some highlights here. Let's just read it all right? The made-up hysteria over Christian nationalism should stop. And then you can check out those videos if you haven't seen them already. Over the last few years, the term Christian nationalism has exploded into the media limelight, growing from an obscure reference to an oft-discussed topic. The trend has become particularly noticeable in recent election cycles, with a seemingly inescapable torrent of headlines and cable news panel debates. Listening to the commentary surrounding this issue could lead a casual observer to believe we are on the verge of commencing a violent religious crusade. Yeah, that's why I highlighted that. That's a good line. That's a good point. That would make people think that, like, oh wow, there's about to be something major that's going to happen. No, I'm not saying that, people aren't planning political revolution, but it is framed in such a way that Christians actually have more power than they do. Christians don't really have political power, like, at all. Like, we're like the tiniest little segment. Like, when you don't count the Catholic Church. Oh, I thought I messed up the screen. It gets really, really small percentage wise. All right, well, let's continue here. Okay, so however, further scrutiny calls into question the hype around so-called Christian nationalism. Manufactured outrage. First, we have to understand that the media boogeyman within the Christian nationalist narrative is not new. Christian conservatives have always resisted radical social changes and have long participated in electoral politics. To the extent that anyone believes this to be a problem, and I don't. Intellectual honesty requires all to concede this is not a new phenomenon, nor is it inherently extremist. Right, Christians actually believing the things that we've always believed is not extremist, but it's viewed as extremist now. According to Google Trends, there were few mentions of Christian nationalism before and during the Trump presidency. Still, the use of the term skyrocketed during the 2022 midterms and has become a rising topic of discussion again during the ongoing 2024 election cycle. The media's newfound obsession with Christian nationalism is generally accompanied by cries of an impending threat to American democracy. The greatest threat would be the whole woke agenda, of course, because that has actually taken over corporations and all kinds of stuff. The insistent yelping of progressive opinion leaders seems to conspicuously proliferate in election years. Next part, unfounded claims and the misrepresentation of faith. To be clear, there are people who proclaim religious motivation as a basis for extremist acts, but this has always been true. Although finding anecdotal evidence of people doing crazy things in the name of a faith tradition isn't impossible, this doesn't automatically validate the progressive media narrative around the rising threat of so-called Christian nationalism. Likewise, there is no evidence of an increase in Christians perpetuating hate crimes or sinister, widespread plot to sabotage democracy. Very, very, very true. Let's see if I can make a better size. Despite fervent alarm, the factual evidence points to a different reality. The belief that Christian nationalism poses a significant threat to democracy ignores reality. America has rapidly secularized, and the Christian identity has been in a state of decline for decades. Likewise, Christian practice in America is highly fragmented, with hundreds of denominations, each with its own doctrines and political preferences. This high variance in religious interpretation undermines the entire concept of Christian nationalism. There is no consensus on Christian identity to form a nationalist movement around. Secular stigmatization and its consequences. Here we're getting to the end. The rebranding of traditional Christian political participation as a radical anti-democratic plot is dishonest and unfair. Agreed. One would be justified in wondering if the fear-mongering around Christian nationalism serves a more insidious purpose: the stigmatization of the Christian faith. Most definitely it does. That's kind of the whole point. If you believe that your values come from God, as the lady at the journalist at Politico said, then you're a Christian nationalist, according to the left. So yeah, if you're just a practicing Christian, a true Christian, a born-again Christian, a genuine Christian, you're a Christian nationalist. The only way you could be a Christian and not a Christian nationalist would be if you're like a Richard Dawkins Christian, where you don't even believe in God, but you consider yourself a cultural Christian. All right, back to it. Where was I at? One would be the stigmatization of Christian faith. Discussing Christian faith in an almost exclusively negative context will likely denigrate religious communities by portraying them as extremists. This misrepresentation of Christianity risks exacerbating the broader cultural shift away from religious tradition and its benefits. Very true. By the way, I referenced Richard Dawkins. I did a video on that. You want to take a look at that as well. It's on the channel if you're interested in that. Richard, if you're not aware, he says he's a cultural Christian now. So very odd. You'll want to watch that video. All right, continuing on. Are you appreciating the truth that's being declared in this episode? Would you like to be reminded of the importance of God's truth each and every day? You might want to go pick up the Truth Transforms coffee mug. That's available in the merchandise shop. You can also get a t-shirt, a hoodie, or even a hat. It is something that certainly I think you'll find to be a blessing, and it is a great way to support the ministry as well. Now, back to the show. In fact, the real threat facing America is declining religiosity. Decades of studies have shown that those engaged with their faith tend to be happier and more charitable than their secular peers. Polling data shows that Gen Z is the least religious, the least conservative, and the most depressed generation on record. This fact highlights the irony of the current situation. In a society grappling with issues like rising youth depression, we find ourselves in the midst of what seems to be a concerted effort to push people away from the benefits of faith. Seems to be? Yeah, absolutely, that's what's going on. It is time to reject myths and embrace the truth. Being a Christian is not radical. Well, it's radical to the world. It's always been radical to the world, and most definitely when a society is becoming more and more and more pagan. Last paragraph. The media manufactured perception of a growing Christian nationalist threat collapses under examination of the facts. The narrative of Christian nationalism as an imminent threat is, at best, an exaggeration, and at worst, a purposeful attempt to polarize and stigmatize Christians for clicks and ratings. Yeah, all of the above, clicks and ratings, sure, but, stigmatize Christians. I mean, there is a true hatred of Christians. That's being seen more and more and more. And so that is a major issue. Now, for discussion, though, about the Christian nationalism that is not the Christian nationalism they're talking about, but more of the in-house Christian debate. Don't forget about this here. This episode here. Oh, hang on. They're all available now. This one, you're not doing it right, computer. And this one, and this one. All three of these, they will be linked below. I think you want to check them out. And even if you don't want to check those out, I've got a whole bunch of other ones in a playlist, so be sure to check them out, including John MacArthur and his loser theology. I'll link that one too, separately from the playlist. But if you just look through the playlist, you're going to find something you like if you're interested in the topic. So I think you should take a look around. Enjoy, grab your popcorn and enjoy watching. Well, thanks for stopping by. If you're new here, be sure to hit subscribe, hit that like button, hit the notification button, jump up and down, do some jumping jacks, do something else, and then come back and, watch another video. God bless you, and I will see you in the next video.